Please welcome Managing Partner of FMZ Ventures, Michael Zeisser, in discussion with Skift Head of Events Programming, Brian Quinn.
Good afternoon. Hello. Can everyone hear me? Yes. Let's bring a little bit of energy into the room. I'm going to maybe take 10 minutes to offer a perspective on experiences, and then Brian and I will talk about what I am sharing now and also take some questions for you to the degree you're interested. I am a venture capitalist. I manage about 300 million, and I invest exclusively in companies that stage experiences or distribute experiences. I am an ex-McKinsey partner. I worked for a long time for the firm that owns Formula One and Live Nation, Ticketmaster, and I was the head of the investment organizations of Alibaba Group, and have been a venture capitalist for the past 5 years. As you can see, I've had the honor really to be affiliated with a number of institutions and organizations that stage experiences, and I like to work with founders in some larger companies to try to help them seize the extraordinary opportunities that exist to transition into what I call the experience economy. The big picture here, which has been brought up quite a bit already this morning, is we're clearly transitioning to a new sector, actually, of experiences over things. And it's been mentioned a number of times already in the session this morning. There's virtually an article every day, and there's virtually surveys and research every day that demonstrate that spending patterns have shifted towards experiences away from things. This is not a phenomenon that was caused by the pandemic. As a matter of fact, the government statistics don't really track experiences. They categorize experiences in the same grouping as services, and I'll get to that in a second. But the general trend of consumer spending shifting away from things has been going on literally for 20 years. The pandemic and COVID have accelerated the trend, like the pandemic has done with a lot of other trends that were pre-existing. I believe it's a very, very big deal. I actually believe what is happening is the emergence of an entirely new economic sector, which I think is entirely consistent with the way that our broad economy has evolved over literally 300 years. So 200 years ago, everyone was effectively a farmer, and there's general agreement and consensus that sometime in the 18th century, we saw the emergence of an industrial economy, and then of course in the 20th century, we saw the emergence of a service economy. The end of the 20th century with the internet was the emergence of an information economy, and it is my belief that we are right now in the early innings of the emergence of an experience economy, an economic sector in its own right. And the reason why I believe this is a structural change and this is a big deal is basically this insight. This is the Maslow hierarchy of needs, which is a framework that many of you, I anticipate, are very familiar with. And the insight that I would offer is, why are we seeing this spending pattern shift away from things into experiences, and what's really going on here, and why is this happening? And what I would offer as a core governing explanation is that the lower level needs in that pyramid are needs that we largely address with things. So we buy groceries for our need for food, we buy apartments and homes for our need for shelter, we buy alarm systems and fences and gates for our need for safety. Those are all things. And as we tend to the higher level needs, self-actualization, belonging, love, those are not needs that we can meet with things. But I will postulate these are needs that we meet through experiences. And the most basic explanation that I can formulate for why are we actually seeing this shift of spending away from things and to experiences is because experiences are the solutions to the higher level human needs. And in many, many markets of the world, these are the needs that people are now addressing. So just very briefly on the business of experiences, personally, I think of experiences as falling into 4 categories. And I'll go through those fairly quickly. Kinetic experiences, which are largely what this is, real world, physical, atomic world experiences, all our travel, live events, sports, festivals would be considered kinetic experiences. Psychotherapeutic experiences are experiences that tend to our psychotherapeutic needs, meditation, therapy, whatever addresses loneliness. The third category is what I call functional experiences. So those are experiences that add functionality to people. We talked earlier this morning about learning, skill building, longevity, and of course the fourth category, which Jimmy just mentioned, virtual experiences, metaverse. So personally, I think about experiences in a much, much broader term than tours and activities. I'll just very quickly touch on a little bit more of a tactical element. Experiences are not services. Experiences are distinct economic offerings. They need to be designed to make impact. Impact can be, at a minimum, memories, but also history or legacy, as someone mentioned earlier, or transformations. And so artifacts are essential to the design and the staging of experiences. And in an ideal world, at a minimum, any experience will create a memory dividend. In other words, the person will have the experience once in a kinetic environment, usually, but then, of course, the memory of that experience will remain with that person, literally, for that person's rest of their life. So, hence the idea of this memory dividend. Jimmy just talked a lot about personalization. That's the technology, or if you want, that's the process. But the purpose, really, of personalization is to make people feel recognized. It's to make people feel like the provider of the experience knows me. And that is really the bar, and in many ways what differentiates, I would say, services from experiences. So before we get into the Q&A and the conversation, I just want to summarize my personal core beliefs. One is that experiences over things is really a big deal. I think it's a historic, generational megatrend, and as I offered, I think it actually is creating an entirely new economic sector. I believe experiences should be thought of as solutions to higher level human needs. I do think they are distinct economic offerings, meaning that they are an exchange of value for impact. And experiences should be designed, marketed, distributed, priced, and executed differently from services, typically with the purpose of making memory, history, family history, or transformations. And as an investor, I am particularly excited about this moment in time because I believe that the companies and the locations that will actually make history in this experience economy are being founded and scaled right now. So thank you for your attention, and maybe we can have a Q&A.
Thank you. Thanks so much for joining us, Michael, in Dubai.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So it's fun for me. I lead the experiences for Skift, and this is a fun opportunity. And maybe one way to think about it, and your purview on the world is so interesting, so maybe one way to think about it is what drives our decisions today, right? And many might say an experience or that creation of core memory that you're talking about, that's what we're thinking about. It's not a thing necessarily. We want to go to a place, and experience leads the way. This is essentially a lifestyle shift generationally and that we're seeing that you expect to continue. So what's funny is that you think about the Amazon experiences, it sounds so abstract. It sounds like a big, audacious idea. The experience economy itself was you know, as a phrase, was coined in 1998 when Amazon was $2 a share. 2008 comes along. You have Airbnb. Airbnb is taking a very fragmented short-term rental sector, and it does what people think is impossible and creates a platform. So why do you think now? Why is now an interesting time for this broad, and I think all of us here are more or less in the experiences business, but why is it a time for a platform to come along and people will adopt it, and you think that this can take hold and you may want to fund or invest in this?
It's a question of the maturity of our economies, really, and where we are as societies. And what I'm saying now is not necessarily true for every person in every market, but certainly in mature markets, by and large, as I offered, I think our lower level human needs are by and large largely addressed. And so we are addressing now higher level human needs. So the primary driver of this is just where we are in the evolutionary stage of our economies. And we're maturing, and so we're wanting and needing new things, different things. And then, of course, there's a demographic overlay because the Gen Z and Gen Alpha truly do have a different value system from ours around diversity, inclusiveness, climate, and environmental awareness. And those are new values that this generation wants to manifest and that new brands need to address.
Cool. Yeah, and so let's talk about the traditional, what's thought of as the experiences industry. And what's interesting is, so Get Your Guide founder, Johannes Reck, and you've advised.
I'm a privileged investor in Get Your Guide, a board member, yes.
So at Global Forum in September, he was mentioning, so the travel experiences sector is about $320 billion, which he sees living within the overall kind of travel and home experience, which, you know, I think that's a broader sector. But for today, let's talk about the $320 billion market. And that's 850,000 suppliers worldwide. What's funny when we talk about this fragmented idea, you have most companies which are 5 people or less than 5,000 guests or, you know, a year, and only 30% of those transactions are online. And this is a lot of why Skift considers this the last frontier of travel to really come online. So what do you see as helping kind of fill the gap here in terms of, is it AI? I mean, there's some controversial elements to that, but I think, is that what you're seeing now, or is it really just the kind of human sentiment and that our desire is there? Or is it both? Yeah.
It's a combination of both, of course. Consumer expectations are not static, and we can know this individually, because we might all be executives and we all have jobs and we all have professional lives, but we also are consumers. And so we know that our expectations today for what we want from brands, online, or interfaces are higher. They're different and they're higher from what they were 5 years ago or 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And so consumers expect to have more access. Consumers expect to have more information. Consumers expect to have the ability to make online bookings. And so, yes, of course, technologies are being created to facilitate all of this, but the fundamental driver is the consumer demand and the consumer expectations.
Well, so let's talk about that online booking. And Raf had promised we'd bring up the dreaded AI conversation, and here we go. So I think what's interesting is there's a phrase of he had said the tyranny of the search box, and in a sense, finding an experience. So we're here in Dubai. I want to find the most interesting things to do. Well, I have to go and hunt. And so maybe this AI idea is, if we can get past some of the data and privacy. In fact, TUI, I think just this month introduced a app that helps, chat that helps essentially provide that conversational knowledge of, hey, here's what to do. And if we think about where we would all find our best experience, it's probably through someone saying, hey, Michael, you should go do this, a word of mouth. Now, do we trust that AI in the future might be that vehicle through which we explore and experience and find out about that, discover?
Over time, yes. I completely agree with the general consensus. AI is an amazing set of technologies and tools, but it's really, really, really early days. And it'll take many years for the visions and the dreams and the hopes of this technology to be fully applied. But yes, if you think about, if you imagine, you just look at what it can do today and you project forward, it's clear that algorithms are going to get to know every one of us.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a ton of privacy, there's a ton of issues, but conceptually, an algorithm is going to get to know us way, way, way better than someone other, than another person will. And so this is why I think one of the differentiating characteristics of experiences is this hyper-personalization, or really is making people emote and feel like, oh my God, this brand, this company knows me. What they're offering, that's exactly what I want. We are so far from achieving that bar, but it's clear that AI could be, maybe should be, a technology years from now that's going to allow brands and companies to offer, make suggestions, proposals to consumers of the thing that, yeah, that's exactly what I want, yes.
And one large driver in this space, Airbnb. So you know Brian Chesky.
Yes.
And I know that he is thinking about, he's obviously actively working on transforming the platform around AI. Do you think that he shares this view that that's going to be a big part of it, or have you advised him, or what would you tell him?
I would never dare speak for Brian. I do have to say, I think Airbnb is the iconic company in the experience economy. And in many ways, personally, I think Brian Chesky is the Steve Jobs of the experience economy. And I think it's very interesting to listen to him when he talks about unlocking the potential of Airbnb. And of course, now he goes into the direction of solving societal issues like loneliness and building more community. So these are very much aligned with the framework that I've been offering here, to say experiences are the solutions for addressing our higher level human needs. Yeah, so I would say let's definitely all pay attention to what Airbnb is doing, because it's definitely a leading company.
Well, let's contextualize it for the travel audience as well too. Destinations. Do you think that destinations should be taking an active interest in terms of facilitating, fostering, growing, and I guess investing in and developing the experiences sector, or should they leave it to the platforms? Is that, I guess, many ways that experience becomes what we define as part of the culture of a city. Is that something we should leave to, someone that's aggregating either first-party or third-party experiences?
No, I think about Dubai, and I think about the energy that exists in this region, and it's, I think, a huge opportunity for the region to take basically its destiny and its future in its own hands, and try to define what it wants to stand for. One of the great privileges of the region is that it is not encumbered with legacy. It's literally a green field, and it can leapfrog, and it can go. What I'm observing with my eyes and what I'm seeing is this is a region that is very deliberate about becoming a leading geography in the experience economy.
Yeah, and I think it's about getting the community to participate. One other platform I saw recently that was really interesting is Easel, a Y Combinator company, I believe. So their website is incredible. It's like sell more experiences, your way, and they really are turn your passion into an empire and create moments you wish to see in the world. So they're really trying to activate the crowd. And so there is a little bit of this socioeconomic question. Do you think, as far as if I wanted to open a hotel tomorrow, obviously I couldn't do that. If I wanted to create an experience tomorrow, I could. And that might really help create an identity of the city and define this. So is this part of your big value proposition of why you think this sector is so attractive and why you want to fund it? Is potential?
I think Easel it's one of my companies, and I think everyone knows about the creator economy, and creators do not need to be only people who have channels on YouTube or on TikTok. You can be a physical world creator. You can make something, you can make community, you can make festivals, you can make events. And so one way for humans, for creators to express their creativity is by staging experiences. And I really hope that this is a way to empower literally millions of people to bring their passion and their gift to the world and create economic value for themselves and for their communities around this.
So we have a question from the audience. Obviously, there's companies like Get Your Guide, which have a strong presence in Dubai, Viator. Do you think it's important for luxury hotels, and we're in the Atlantis here, the Royal in Dubai, to also create their own experiences in this economy? Or do you see hospitality having a role, or is it smaller than that? Or how would you describe it?
I mean, I'm a strategy person,
Sure.
And so I would never pretend to know how hotel operators should operate their business. But from my perspective, in the hospitality business, it feels like the why is becoming more important than the where. And so I believe that yes, and this is a magnificent hotel here, and what we heard earlier in the morning is the care and the deliberate design of the experience here around things other than just the location and the, people were talking about lifelong learning, people were talking about wellness, people were talking about personal growth. That's what I mean when I say the why.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I do believe that the why is becoming a much more important vector in addition to the where, and maybe trending towards becoming the primary vector for, again, consumer choice.
there's a few tensions and experiences which are kind of interesting to think about. So that quality and scale, and obviously you're an investor, so scale is something you think about a lot. When we look at, even get your guide here, there's quality experiences. Obviously, they've recommended some of these. Here's the dune bashing. They've given it an icon to consider that this is something they approve. And so it's hard to have this quality, like if you just scaled it, and they are creating replicable things. Other platforms have had problems with copycats. Like let's say I have a cooking tour or a cooking experience at my home, and it's really successful, and I sell it out, and so someone decides I'm going to duplicate it and start selling it, and it'll be a lesser version, and it'll be a loss of quality. So sometimes this idea of the opposing qualities, is this a feature, not a flaw? Is that just a part of growth? And you've worked for big e-commerce brands and things like that. Do you see that as a problem, or is that? And I know actually Airbnb even paused their new operators that could join for experiences. I think I don't know what the intention was, but how do you think about this?
Yeah, so the first thing I would say is, yeah, it's hard. And the second thing I would say is, it's not supposed to be easy. And the third thing I would say is, this is really the essential challenge. The way I think about it is, what is the differentiating characteristic of experiences is really the human touch. In that sense, I do believe actually that experiences are kind of future-proof. I think they will not be supplemented by algorithms and computers and robots. I think our industry is going to be helped by algorithms and AI, because fundamentally what makes the difference is the human touch. Of course, that raises the question of, how do you scale the human touch? How do you replicate that extraordinary tour guide? How do you replicate that extraordinary therapist? How do you replicate that? And technology is helping. And as an investor, I look for companies that are using state-of-the-art technologies, including algorithms, to try to scale and replicate that human touch, or amplify the impact of people who have that extraordinary touch. But we're early days. I would make something up if I said, here are all the answers. This is part of why this is exciting, and I think we can all be really excited to be living at this moment in time when there are these amazing changes that are happening, and we can all participate in them.
Well, thank you. I'm reminded of that phrase, like technology at its best is about improving the human experience.
Yes.
And that's certainly from Silicon Valley and all of that. So do you think you would trust a platform to, in the future, and trust, I guess, is the key word, to be the vehicle for that human experience?
Yes, of course.
Great. Michael, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.